Welcome to the second episode of OTD, your daily dose of soccer history by 17 Lost Guy. Today is November 2nd, and we are at the Britannia Stadium in 2013. The scoreboard will read Stoke City 1, Southampton 1, but after just 13 seconds, it reads like a magic trick. Saints kicked off. After a few seconds, the ball is with Stoke and a back pass sequence with direction towards Asmir Begović, the keeper. Around the 7-second mark, he kicks the ball into a stiff Potteries gale. It passes the halfway line, still rising. Then it comes back to earth, takes one monstrous trampoline bounce, and sails over Artur Boruc. 13 seconds gone, Stoke lead 1-0. Later, Guinness certifies it's the longest goal in a competitive match at 91.9 meters or 100 yards, and it stands as the fastest Premier League goal ever scored by a goalkeeper. For the record, the distance mark was surpassed in January 2021 by Tom King, who scored a wind-assisted goal from just over 96 meters or 105 yards as keeper for Newport County. Southampton steadied themselves and equalized through J. Rodriguez right before halftime. It finishes all square 1-1. Even Mark Hughes, Stoke's manager, admits the wind, quote, spoiled the game, end quote. But for the law, one swing and one bounce are plenty. Why did the ball behave like that, you may ask? Well, first the wind. Begović has a strong tailwind. The ball carries and never checks up. Then the early winter surface, firm underneath, ideal for a high skidding ball to bounce and accelerate after landing. The trajectory of the ball was a flat, low-spin kick. Instead of hanging and losing speed, it stayed like on a rope. And finally positioning. Boruc, Southampton's keeper, is set high for transition, but that giant bounce left him stranded. In Premier League history, only 6 keepers have scored. Peter Schmeichel was the first in 2001 for Aston Villa. He scored on a volley after a corner. Brad Friedel scored for Blackburn in 2004 after a close-range scramble. Paul Robinson, keeper for Tottenham in 2007, scored on a long free kick, one bounce, in. Tim Howard took advantage of the wind in 2012 when he scored for Everton. Like Brad Friedel, Howard also is known for being a United States international. Then Asmir Begović for Stoke in 2013, today's 13-second rocket. And finally Alisson Becker, who is most recent keeper to having scored in Premier League when, in 2021, he scored a match winner for Liverpool in the 5th minute of injury time, the first headed Premier League goal by a keeper. But beyond England, the pantheon is wild and wonderful. Rogério Ceni from Sao Paulo. He is the benchmark with, I kid you not, 131 career goals, both penalties and free kicks. José Luis Chilavert. He even bagged a hat-trick of penalties in one club match. Peter Schmeichel. 11 career goals across club and country, including in Europe for Manchester United. But first, Charlie Williams, credited as the very first goalkeeper to score in English league play for Manchester City in the year 1900, and then later he coached Denmark to Olympic silver in 1908. In soccer history, we have quite a few examples of keepers scoring peculiar and, sometimes, last-minute game-deciding goals. Pat Jennings scored a 60-yard skimmer for Tottenham in the 1967 Charity Shield match against Manchester United at Old Trafford. One wicket bounce over Alex Stepney, United's goalie, and in. The match ended 3-3. Speaking of 3-3, Peter Schmeichel's successor at Brøndby, Mogens Krogh, scored a vital title-saving header in 1996. In stoppage time, away at AGF, Krogh goes up for a corner and heads a 3-3 equalizer in a de facto title decider. Brøndby stayed a point clear and eventually win the league by that 1 point. A bonus nerd fact here is that Brad Friedel, the American keeper who scored for Blackburn in the Premier League, also played for Brøndby as backup keeper for Mogens Krogh, who again succeeded Peter Schmeichel. There must have been something in the water there in the 90s. Next is Hans-Jörg Butt, who in 2004 scored and then immediately conceded. It was for Leverkusen, away against Schalke in the Bundesliga. Butt buries a penalty and is still jogging back towards his goal when Schalke's Mike Hanke scores straight from the restart. Peak chaos. And how about Jimmy Glass, Carlisle's lone keeper, who in 1999 scored in stoppage time from a corner to keep the club in the league to the detriment of Scarborough, whose fans were on the pitch celebrating survival in the league after a 1-1 draw against Peterborough, only to then get the message about Glass's and Carlisle's improbable goal against Plymouth and the consequential relegation from the Football League. What the 2013 moment meant for Stoke and for Saints? Well, Stoke City were the true pioneers, founding members of the Football League in 1888. They won the Football Alliance in 1891 and were re-elected to the expanded league the next season. Best top-flight finish was a 4th place in 1936. Their major honor was the 1972 League Cup. A keeper scoring from almost 100 yards fits perfectly in a club history full of sturdy graft and idiosyncratic legend. Southampton were FA Cup winners in 1976 and First Division runners-up in 1984, with Steve Moran leading the line and Peter Shilton in goal. The Begović goal becomes one of those you had to be there Premier League moments. Astonishment, but then a decent away point. Begović handled it with class, openly sympathizing with Boruc. He called it every keeper's nightmare, and later posing bemused with a Guinness certificate. It's not an accolade you train for, but it's absolutely one you frame. Because it compresses football's chaos into a heartbeat, technique versus weather, positioning versus physics, disbelief turning to laughter, then legend. In 13 seconds, a goalkeeper joined the scorer's column and the record books. That's all for the second episode of OTD, your daily dose of soccer history, about November 2nd, 2013, when a keeper scored from 100 yards out and set a record. Enjoying these snippets from football history? Send your ideas, corrections, or your own obscure favorites to otd@17lawsguy.com. Please subscribe, leave 5 stars, and share with the football romantics in your life. It really helps others find us. Tomorrow, November 3rd, off to Lisbon, Sporting versus Rangers in 1971 in the Cup Winners' Cup. Extra time, a penalty shootout that shouldn't have happened, and UEFA later awarding the tie to Rangers on away goals. Buckle up and join us.